Hello, book friends. It is time for another monthly reading wrap-up. From classics to mysteries, nonfiction to middle grade, I'm here to share all the books I read in February. Hello, I'm Jen, and welcome back to my reading life, and welcome to another monthly reading wrap-up video where I share all of the books that I read in the prior month, and today I'm here to talk all about the books I read in February. I read 12 books in February, which, considering February is a shorter than average month, that was a pretty good reading month. And I will have to say, I did read quite a few very short books, and a number of these I listened to on audio. So without further ado, I am going to order these as I normally do in these reading wrap-ups. I'm going to start with the books I enjoyed the least and move all the way up to my favorites of the month. Now, when I say I enjoyed these first few books the least, none of these were bad books. I didn't read a dud in the bunch in February, so I still enjoyed every single one of these and would recommend them if it is something that appeals to you. Definitely give these a read. But let us start off with an audiobook mystery that I listened to that is part of a series. And that book is Mrs. Jeffries' Dusts for Clues by Emily Brightwell. This is the second book in the Mrs. Jeffries mystery series. This is a Victorian cozy, or I'm going to say cozy adjacent mystery. If you don't know what I mean by cozy adjacent, I've talked about that in some of my prior mystery videos. I will link them in the description box so you can go and check them out. But Mrs. Jeffries is a housekeeper. She works for a detective at Scotland Yard in London, and her detective employer, I mean, is he the best at his job? Perhaps not. He's a little bit squeamish. He really should be sitting behind a desk somewhere pushing paper, but he has been pushed back out onto the street, and as a result, Mrs. Jeffries and the rest of the household servants assist him in all of his police work, unbeknownst to him. And in this one, a young woman's body has been discovered in some abandoned houses, and there's no identification on this young woman, and she's been there for a couple of months, and so it's very hard to distinguish her features. And so it turns out that their neighbor, whose name I am forgetting, she's an American, but a friend of hers who is a maid has gone missing. And she's asked Mrs. Jeffries and team to help her find her friend, and they go about doing that. And in the meantime, they think that this body that was discovered might be the friend. And you are going to go along and follow the clues along with Mrs. Jeffries, and this series is just fun. If you're a fan of the Lady Hardcastle mysteries or the Phillida Bright mysteries by Colleen Cambridge, I would definitely recommend Mrs. Jeffries. She's very much of that same ilk, and I very much enjoy them on audio, and I'll be moving on to book 3 very soon. And the next book that I read was Madame de Treymes by Edith Wharton. I read this with my Gilded Age buddy read group, and this is actually a novella. In this, we're following an American man who is in Paris, and he has reconnected with a woman who he was friendly with, only she married into an aristocratic French family, but her marriage has since fallen apart, and our main character has come to try to convince her to get a divorce and to marry him instead. But she has lots of concerns about her young son and whether or not the family will try to take him from her if she divorces his father and gets remarried. And Madame de Treymes is her sister-in-law, and she sort of comes into the mix and plays a role in helping the two of them and helping her sister-in-law get a divorce. You'll have to read and find out exactly what happens. I don't know if I just wasn't quite in the mood for this one, but it took me a pretty long time to get invested in this, and I'm not sure that I wholly agree with the sort of large generalizations it feels like Edith Wharton is making about sort of new America versus old Europe. I'm still wrapping my head around it, and my Gilded Age Buddy Read group, we haven't yet had a chance to discuss this, so I think maybe once I have a chance to chat with them about it, maybe my thoughts will clarify a little bit more. But not my favorite Edith Wharton, but again, still glad that I read it. Next up is a nonfiction book that was a reread, and that was How Reading Changed My Life by Anna Quindlen. And I have talked about this book recently on my channel, and it just prompted me to want to pick this up and read through it again. It is a very slim little book, and it's just Anna Quindlen's musings on reading and how that's affected her and her life. It's very bookish. It's full of lots of book references. So if that is something that you enjoy, then definitely give this slim little book a read. Next up is another nonfiction book, and that is Reconnected: How 7 Screen-Free Weeks with Monks and Amish Farmers Helped Me Recover the Lost Art of Being Human by Carlos Whitaker. And I listened to the audiobook read by the author, and I've followed Carlos Whitaker on Instagram for quite a while. And then I heard Krista at Books and Jams, she was going to be reading this book. And as many of you know, I am working this year on reducing my screen time, and I was just thinking this might be just kind of the perfect book to read as I am thinking through my own usage of social media and my phone and the internet and technology in general. And I really enjoyed Carlos's take on his experiences. He spent a couple of weeks at a monastery in Southern California, and then he went to Ohio and lived with an Amish farm family. And he had no phone, screen, anything technologically related. He didn't use any of that for those entire 7 weeks. And it was just interesting to listen to him talk through his experiences. So if you're a fan of Carlos Whitaker, I would definitely give this one a read. I think listening to it is a really good way to experience it, listening to him talk in his own voice. And it's not the best written book. Was there anything super groundbreaking in it? No, not really. But if you're looking for just some ideas to reinforce the importance of just being present in the real world, then I think this is a great book to read. Plus, I learned so much about Amish life and about what life is like in a monastery, and I found both of those aspects of the book really fascinating. So that was just kind of an added bonus to reading that. Next up, I made a little more headway in my goal to complete all of Agatha Christie's works. And so next up, I read The Underdog and Other Stories. And of course, this is a short story collection. These are all Hercule Poirot stories, And I love this vintagey edition that I have. But I actually listened to this on audio, and it was a delight. It was actually narrated by Hugh Fraser, except one of the stories was narrated by David Suchet, and that was kind of fun as well. So I very much enjoyed these on audio. Just, classic quintessential Hercule Poirot stories. I'm so glad that I've read this one and can check it off my list. And if you're an Agatha Christie fan or a mystery short story fan, then I would definitely give this one a read. And next, I decided to read another book by one of my new favorite authors and another author I want to read to completion, and that was The President's Hat by Antoine Lorrain. The story starts off following Daniel Mercier, and he is lunching alone at a Parisian brasserie when the French president, Francois Mitterrand, comes into the restaurant and sits at the table next to him, and he's listening to the president speak to the people he's with, and he kind of lingers over his lunch to stay there as long as possible, and the president and his party leave before Daniel does, and the president leaves his hat behind, and Daniel decides to take it and not return it and just keep it and wear it. And suddenly things start to change for Daniel. He has some successes in his job and just changes in his personal life. And, is it the hat? Is it actually the hat, like something magical happening with the hat? Or is it just the feeling it imbues by having this hat? And then Daniel loses the hat, and we follow the hat as it goes to its next, I don't want to say owner, but the next person who claims it. And we kind of follow the hat's trajectory from person to person. And I just found this so much fun. It was such a quick, light read. If you enjoy Antoine Lorraine's writing, definitely give this one a read. I think it's a close second for me to The Red Notebook. I very much enjoyed it. And I thought we were going to follow Daniel throughout the whole book. So it was kind of interesting that we ended up having some other characters that we got introduced to who have the hat and wear the hat and have their lives changed by the hat. So yes, if that sounds intriguing to you, definitely give The President's Hat a read. It was lovely. And my next read was the book we read for the Cozy Reader Book Club, and that was The Talisman Ring by Georgette Heyer. And this is one of Georgette Heyer's historical Regency romances, though it really had a lot of adventure to it. And it reminded me a lot of The Scarlet Pimpernel, just in kind of its tone and pacing, not necessarily in the storyline, though we do have somebody in the story who is kind of hiding out from the law. So we follow four people, Eustace and Ludovic, Sarah and Sir Tristram. And Ludovic is on the run from the law because they think he murdered somebody and stole this family talisman ring. And he has been presumed to be outside of England, but turns out he's not. And through a series of events, all four of them end up in close proximity. Three of them are staying at an inn, and Sir Tristram is at home but nearby. And we follow along as they try to hide Ludovic and then also clear his name. And it was just a lot of fun. I will say that there was kind of a period in the middle where a little bit of it felt repetitive to me, kind of like maybe we could move the story along a little bit in a different way, but it was a small quibble in an otherwise thoroughly enjoyable read. And we had a wonderful discussion of this at the Cozy Reader Book Club. And I think most everybody loved it. We had a few people who didn't enjoy it that much, but most people really did. If you're a fan of Georgette Heyer or of Regency romance, then definitely read The Talisman Ring. Next up is a middle grade book that I actually checked out from the library to read during middle grade March, but I was just in the mood for it on the final day of February. I was a little bit under the weather and I was curled up here in my reading room and I thought, what do I feel like reading? And this was the book I wanted to read, and I literally read it in one sitting. And that was Letters from Camp by Kate Cleise. And in this we have 4 sets of siblings and they are sent to this camp. What is the name of the camp again? Camp Happy Harmony, in order to restore their sibling relationships, because their parents are all concerned that the siblings don't get along with one another. They're all brother-sister sibling pairs, and this camp is run by a former sort of like family, I want to say like Partridge Family, Osmond Family type of singing group from a bygone era. And now they run this camp for siblings. And yet something strange is afoot at Camp Happy Harmony. And we have is he the groundskeeper? Oh, the camp postman. And the only adult at the camp who doesn't seem to be doing anything strange is the camp postmaster. And the kids start getting a sense that something is very wrong, and they kind of delve into the mystery and figure out what exactly is going on. This was just so much fun. It's epistolary. If you have read Regarding the Fountain or any of Kate Cleise's other books, they are wonderful. It is illustrated by her, I think her sister, Sarah Cleise, and so it is just such a delight to read. Again, very easy because it's all done in the epistolary format, and I thoroughly enjoyed Letters from Camp. Highly recommend it if you're looking for just an easy, fun read for middle grade March, or this would also be a great read for the summertime. If you have been to camp, you will definitely enjoy this. Next up was a book that I actually finished right at the very beginning of February. So I read most of this in January, and I actually listened to the audiobook, and then a friend gifted me a physical copy of it, and I'm so excited to have it on my shelf because I could definitely see myself rereading this at some point. And that is Mrs. Endicott's Splendid Adventure by Rhys Bowen. And in this, Mrs. Endicott is what she thinks is happily married, and then it turns out her husband has met a younger woman and he wants a divorce. And this is taking place right before World War II in England. And Mrs. Endicott is suddenly, her life has been turned upside down and she doesn't know what to do. But she ends up taking a couple of other women with her and heading off in her husband's, is it his Bentley? Yes, in his Bentley, and they take off for the south of France. And we just follow along with what happens to them on their adventures. They end up stopping in a small village in the south of France and kind of settling down there. And we follow along with what happens to them before the war, during the war, and then right at the tail end of the war. And I was worried that this book was gonna maybe take a dark turn, and I can happily say it does not. It is truly a splendid adventure, and there are some difficult things that happen in it. I won't lie. I mean, obviously there are wartime things going on, and there is some tense moments as a result of that. But overall, this was just such a charming and delightful read. And if that appeals to you, just kind of these women reinventing themselves and finding their own place in the world, then definitely give Mrs. Endicott's Splendid Adventure a read. And I have one more middle grade book that I read in February, and I picked this up because I heard the lovely Kate Howe mention it in one of her recent videos, and it reminded me that I wanted to read it. And it does have some sort of winter to spring transitional scenes in it, and so February felt like a good month to pick it up. And I very much enjoyed it. It was just the gentle read my heart needed at that time, and that was Miracles on Maple Hill by Virginia Sorensen. In this, we follow Marley and her family, and her father, I think, is suffering from PTSD. I can't remember if this is after World War I or World War II, but he is home from the war and struggling. And so they decide to take him to stay. There's this family home at Maple Hill, and this is in New England in the US. And so they go there, and initially the father stays there and the family kind of goes up on the weekends because the kids are still in school. And then over kind of their breaks from school, they end up spending quite a bit of time there, and they become very friendly. They have like family friends that live near them, and they just kind of get involved in the community. And then they end up staying there even longer and kind of getting settled there and not going back to where they were living. And it's just so wonderful. You get to follow them along on them like tapping the trees for maple syrup and doing all of that, and just kind of living this very kind of nostalgic child life, full of the outdoors and, small adventures and nature. And it was just so lovely and charming and just a pure delight to read, and I highly recommend this one. Definitely one of my new favorite nostalgic middle grade reads for sure. And then I have two final books to share with you. These were my top reads of February, and the first was a reread, and this will probably come as no surprise, but I reread Miss Bunkle's book by D.E. Stevenson. I buddy read this with my lovely friend Jacqueline, and I first read this in January of 2023, so it was fun to come back to it 3 years later and revisit with Miss Bunkle and all of the wonderful and zany and hilarious and sometimes cranky characters that inhabit Miss Bunkle's life and her world. And this is just Such a fun book. And if you have never read D.E. Stevenson before, this is a fun place to start, though I will say that it is not completely indicative of D.E. Stevenson's writing. This book has just a little bit more quirk to it than I think some of her other books, which feel much more just kind of standard slice of life, village life stories. And so if you like a little quirkiness in your books, then definitely give Miss Bunkle's book a read, and the 3 sequels to it as well, which are also lovely. But it was so much fun to revisit Miss Bunkle, and I know I'll be back with her again in the not too distant future. And then my final book for February, and this was my favorite read of the month, and that was The Making of a Marchioness by Frances Hodgson Burnett. And I actually did a little group read of this. Rebecca, my co-host of the Cozy Reader Book Club, invited me to join her and some of our other friends in reading this book and chatting about it on Instagram. And it was so wonderful. I had no idea that I was going to love this book as much as I did, though I should have known, because I do love Frances Hodgson Burnett's children's books that she has written. I have read The Little Princess and The Secret Garden and love them both. In this, we're following Emily Fox Seton, and she was sort of born into a genteel type family, but she doesn't have any money. Her family sort of lost all their money, and she's alone in the world. She doesn't have any siblings. Her parents are dead, and so she kind of gets by helping other wealthy women, you know, doing shopping for them and being companions to them. And so she sort of makes a living by doing that. And she lives in a small boarding house run by this mother and daughter who are really lovely to her and are wonderful characters. We see her kind of getting involved with some wealthy people. She goes to a house party, and there is a man there who takes a shine to her unexpectedly. And that is where we have the making of a Marchioness. And then that is sort of the first book in this. And then there's a second book, which apparently they weren't written at the same time, and they were kind of written separate, but they've been combined together into one volume now. And in the second one, we see Emily, now that she is the Marchioness, and follow along with her and her husband. And he has, I think he's maybe a nephew or cousin or something, who is supposed to be his heir if he doesn't have any children. And now that, you know, he's gotten married to Emily, the chances of that are, you know, diminishing, that this man is going to get all of his riches. And he's very upset about it. And he's come back from India with his half Indian wife, and is kind of up to no good. We follow along with that, and there's some tension because of that. I just really enjoyed going along with this. Emily is, like, she's such a good person, and she really only sees the good in others. She has a hard time finding their faults, and you know, she forgives people a lot. And so I think that might bother some people, but I don't know. I just enjoyed Emily. I just liked her spirit, and I think I was just in the right mood for this. And I thought it was so lovely. The ending of it, I will say, maybe there was one thing about it that I would have liked to have been different, but actually, on retrospect, I kind of think it ended the way it should. And it was interesting to read, like, in the introduction, and I think there's also an afterword in this, kind of about Frances Hodgson Burnett. She had a horrible marriage, and you know, her life wasn't filled with much love or happiness, it doesn't seem like. So this book is kind of a reaction, I think, to that, and so that was interesting to read about. But if that at all intrigues you, definitely give this a read. I love this Persephone edition. Beautiful. I can count another Persephone book read off of my shelf, so that is wonderful. But I thoroughly enjoyed this, and I could see myself rereading it, because I think there's a lot of nuance in it that I think I might get more of on a second read, but it was wonderful. And that will do it. That wraps up the 12 books that I read in February. And it was a pretty good reading month for me overall, even though it felt like the month was over in a flash. January felt like it lasted forever. February felt like I blinked and it was over. Let us see what March brings us. But I would love to chat with you in the comments. What did you read in February? Did you have any standout books that you highly recommend? Let's chat all about February reading down in the comments below. And if you're here, but you don't have anything you'd like to add in the comments, but you'd like to let me know that you were here, because comments really do help my channel. Well, one last time, because it was the month of love, why don't you leave something love related, hearts, flowers, whatever it is that makes you think of love and romance. Leave those emojis. I love seeing those and knowing that you were here. And if you enjoyed this video and you wouldn't mind hitting that like button and also the hype button, if you're on the YouTube mobile app, you might have to scroll a little bit past where you hit the like button to find the hype button. But it really does help get my videos pushed out there so that other cozy book readers can find me, and I so appreciate it. And if you're new here and you enjoyed this video and you would like to see more cozy bookish content, then I would love it if you would hit that subscribe button and join my community. Thank you all so much for being here. Thank you for your lovely comments and for all of your support of my channel. To those of you who hit the super thanks button on my last video, thank you so much. And if you want even more content from me that is not here on my YouTube channel, you can head over to Patreon. Did you know I have a Patreon? Over there, I share additional videos. We do monthly book chats. We do quarterly read-alongs. I also have some extra goodies that I share with my members throughout the year. And I would love it if you would join us. Even if you just want to join the free level of my Patreon, that gives you access to my weekly newsletter where I share what I'm reading, what's going on with me, and what all is happening in my Jen's Reading Life world. I would love for you to join us, so head on over there. The link is always in the description box below. And as always, I'll be back with another video very soon, and until then, I wish you a good book and a warm cuppa. Bye!